Hey guys, this is Julian. Today I'll be introducing the D2 Bravo. It's the new Garmin Pilot watch.
So what we have in the box is the watch itself, two bands. One is brown leather, the other one is plastic. You have the tools necessary to change the bands. You have, of course, the charging cables, and you have 6 months to Garmin Pilot. Okay, so let's focus on the watch itself. The design is actually, I would say, much better than the original D2. The watch, I guess, is a little bit larger in terms of diameter and a little bit thinner, which gives it a better look. The quality is also really good, I think. It's superior to the original D2. I really like it. Now let's focus on the battery. The battery lasts 6 weeks according to Garmin in watch mode. I would say 3 weeks maybe, or 3 to 4 weeks with Bluetooth activated, which is much better than the original D2. And which is what is also much better is that in GPS mode it lasts 20 hours or 50 hours with Ultra Track. Now let's talk about the display for a minute. You see it's not a normal LED display, it's a transflective display, which means that it's very readable in the sunlight, but if you're not in the sunlight, then it's much harder to read and you will need to turn on the backlighting. Now let's look at the buttons. So they change a little bit as compared to the original D2. Now the up and down buttons are here. This is a light button as always. This triggers a menu. It's called the light menu. Um, this is the start stop button, which you might use in a stopwatch mode, but also to start and stop activities. And this is the back button. These two buttons are, as always, the D2 button and the nearest button. If you press and hold them, then you will go into these modes. Well, of course, you need GPS for the nearest function. Now, the watch face itself has a different number of modes. Let's have a look at them. So you go into the settings, watch face. First of all, you can choose between digital analog and Connect IQ. This is basically to get other watch faces from the App Store from Garmin. You can change the background color, accent color, the layout, second style. Wow, that's very similar to the D2. In my case, I prefer this one. Additional data. So you have the date, the sunset, sunrise time. One cool thing is that, okay, you still have the UTC, but you also have that little arrow, which I think shows the direction of something. I haven't figured out what yet. So you have a number of options, which I think is really nice. You also have status icons to show if you're connected to the Bluetooth, battery, and alarm clock. Now, looking at the widgets, just pressing the down button or up button will show you the widgets, a little bit like in the original D2. Of course, you can rearrange the order of the widgets, so that's not a problem. So here, it shows you the steps throughout the day and some physical activity. Here is a compass. Next, you have the altimeter, which you can set. Basically, using the barometer setting or the current elevation or the last GPS altitude. Next, you have the temperature. In this case, it's linked to the Garmin Tempi. You have a cool widget, which is the METAR. And you can see the little thing here showing it's trying to connect to the internet and get the latest information. If you click, you enter that widget, and then you can scroll pages. And the last page is to select a new station. So either use the nearest or enter the station name with the airport name. So that's pretty neat, I have to say. The next widget is the verb remote control. Then the weather. In that case, you can also enter the app. It shows you the hourly weather forecast as well as a daily weather forecast for your area. Next, you have calendar, which is connected to your phone. notifications, which is also connected to your phone. Again, you can click and get more information about that. You can really go into details. So that's a pretty nice feature, as notifications actually pop up on the screen. What else do we have? Time zones, that's pretty important. But you see, sometimes it doesn't work. It requires connection to the phone, and perhaps my connection is not so good at the moment. For sun and moon, you also need the position. That's a drawback, I would say. And the battery gauge, which I got from internet, shows you the battery status over time. Now that's for the widgets. Now let's look a little bit at the settings that the watch offers. So you have the apps settings. You can select an app and set settings for that app. Those settings are pretty detailed. I think it's interesting how much you can set on each of those apps. The watch faces, we went over that already. Widgets, you can decide to show or hide widgets and reorganize them. On sensors, you can basically calibrate the altimeter. You can select the source, actually. You can do that manually or with the metadata, and that's pretty helpful, I would say. You can set an altitude alert, O2 alert, and sync to GPS elevation. Elevation itself can also be calibrated. So that's a little bit confusing, I think, to have both altimeter and elevation. I know that altimeter should be from the pressure sensor, elevation from the GPS, but elevation, actually, if you need to calibrate it, it means it also comes from the pressure sensor. Then you have all the other sensors that you might have. Looking at the Bluetooth, you can easily pair a mobile device as long as it has Bluetooth Low Energy, BLE, and then you can get notifications from that device. The watch can connect to Wi-Fi, but only for certain things, so the update of the firmware or the synchronization of your activities to Garmin Connect, I believe. Activity tracking, that's for the steps. Navigation, that's really interesting. We'll go over that later. And system, you have user profile with information about yourself. That's mostly used for activities. Hotkeys, so the hold start this button and hold back that button. Language, preferences for time. And backlight, sounds, units, whether you want GLONASS to be active. Position format for different kind of things. Data recording, so that's for tracking. USB modes, and then restore default software updates about. My system is actually 2.3 at the moment. Now let's have a look how one can create a flight plan. So in the D2 you would go to navigation. Here it says courses. In the D2 it would say flight plan. And these are all your flight plans. But there's no way to create a flight plan on the watch. Also, there's no way to send a flight plan from Garmin Pilot to the watch or from an iPad or a mobile device to the watch. The only solution is to send your flight plans from your computer using Basecamp to the watch with the USB cable. And this is how I got these 3 flight plans on the watch. Now let's have a look at the flight app. So this button basically from the watch face shows you all the different apps that you have on the watch. And I think we're mostly interested in the flight app. Here it tries to connect to the GPS, and while it does that, it will always have this stop section there. And you can, if the GPS is active, you will have a green ring, and you click here to start the activity, saying that, okay, I'm starting to fly. For the other apps, it means, okay, I'm starting to bike, I'm starting to run. And you can pause the activity here and start it again. And then the ring will disappear. So here you have your instrument screen with altitude, speed, track, and vertical speed. Then you have your nearest screen with bearing, ETE, track, and distance. Notice that each of these screens have a timer at the bottom to tell you how long ago you started this activity. That's pretty handy, even for flying, because this app actually can, once you start the app, it can auto start itself with the vertical speed thresholds, which means that as soon as you take off, the watch will actually press this button by itself. Then the next screens are user defined. So I decided to have altitude, ambient, pressure, barometer, and GPS elevation, and other parameters. What's cool is that you can create your own data fields. I did this using the Connectic framework by programming that, and that tells me the cost of flying, for instance, with this particle plane. Now that is a map, and as you can see, there's nothing on this map. I haven't activated anything, so I just have my own waypoints. And now I'm zooming out, and those new waypoints here, that's in France. And I'm in Germany now, and you see there's no border, there's no base map, there's not even the nearby airports, because I have not activated navigation. It does tell you where the north is, but that's pretty much it. Well, that's it. Now let's say we want to navigate somewhere. For this, we could enter an airport code, or do nav direct to or nearest airport. But in my case, I want to use a flight plan. So navigation, courses, and let's activate this. To course. Now you have a new display, which is the HSI. I guess that's pretty good. It would also tell you the distance to your destination. And the map is upgraded with airports. So let me zoom out and look at that. Actually, no, you would only see airports once you have a GPS fix. Yeah, that's when airports would display. Let me get a GPS fix. Alright, I got a GPS fix, so now you see I can have the airports. Let me zoom out. Okay, I have nearby airports around me on the moving map, and that's nice. And the green line is my flight plan. It's not a direct flight plan, it goes through several waypoints, and so you see it's a little bit curved. But that's all you will see on that map. So it's just not as usable as the one on the D2. The one on the D2 had the base map with country borders, with main cities, with the water areas, and that really helped increase your situational awareness. The D2 Bravo does not have that available, and you will just have to do with your flight plan, and if you don't have one, with your direct to or your nearest button. That's a very big drawback of the D2 Bravo. But this can be improved by software, so I hope Garmin will react and do something about it. Also, one important thing to note is that you do not have your next waypoint. So you don't have a screen for your next waypoint, you don't have a pointer for your next waypoint, and you do not have data fields related to your next waypoint like ETE and ETA. These numbers are only related to your destination. The one cool thing that you have is that little red arrow that you saw a second ago. Well, the GPS was acquired. Now I'm inside, so GPS is gone. It shows you at any time the nearest airport, but it doesn't show you the nearest, your next waypoint, and that's a big drawback. Alright, so to exit this, I have to stop the activity, and then I can go back and say discard the flight, because I don't need to save that. So now that, let's assume that we saved this, if I wanted to send that to the computer or to the iPad, I would usually go in history, activities, find my latest activity, say this one, can look at details, look at it on the map, and usually I would be able to send it to base map on the iPad, but in this case it's not compatible with the iPad. So the only solution is to connect a USB cable and transfer it to Basecamp on your computer. Also, one important thing to note is that there's no longer a button to mark your position. I would suggest that Garmin places this there, as there's no long press function associated with the down button. Also, another thing that's missing is the alarm clock. So of course there is one alarm clock, but only one. So you can set the time, notification status, but you cannot add several alarm clocks or set which days of the week you would like it to ring. It's also compatible, it's worth noting, with the accessories that you may use in sports or in outdoor activities, like the heart rate band, the step sensor, and the Garmin Tempi for the temperature. One of the main improvements of this watch over the Garmin D2 is a Connect IQ. It's a framework for developers to make their own apps. So now you have an app store from Garmin where apps are all free. For instance, this one is a widget that I downloaded from the app store, and it shows you the battery charge over time. So that's very nice. So basically you have watch faces, widgets, data fields, and apps. Those are 4 kinds of things that you can get from the store. And I'll focus on apps. So that's one app that I started to program myself. The idea is to input very little information, most of it on internet. Then you can check your loads. So in this case, you can change at the last minute the loading of the plane, how much fuel you have, and then it can make some calculations based on that. Alright, so after you review the loads and how much fuel you have and so on, and you input where you want to fly to from where and what's your alternate, you look at the performance of the plane, and you want to know if the plane can take off from the runway, the distances, the balance of the plane, etc. This can be displayed on the watch. See, basically I had a flight plan program from Amsterdam to Paris, Charles de Gaulle with Le Bourget being the alternate, and here the app got from internet the weather report from Amsterdam and the runway. So runway 04 is available. This is in feet, the distance. I haven't translated it to meters yet. This is how much my aircraft needs with these conditions. And I can see that I have a lot of leeway. Here instead, I have a problem, so I show that in red. I may not have enough runway to take off. Well, of course, this is dummy data, but this and this is real. And this is my aircraft with the loading. And that's the time. And the other cool thing is then once you decided that you can take off for this flight, you can navigate, and this would be the way the map looks with information at the bottom. 2 main things, or 3, is the ground speed here, the altitude, and the heading. You have other information that's pretty cool, like fuel on board, ETE, ETA, time, etc., distance to destination. You have your flight plan, and I would add a lot of things, but this is the stuff that the App Store allows you to do to improve a lot on the existing. So that's the main added value of the D2 Bravo over its predecessor, the Garmin D2. And I think that's one of the main reasons I bought this watch, is to get access to Connect IQ and get apps as they are developed and made available by developers, because this will just make the watch a lot better over time. Well, that's the end of this review. I hope you learned some things. And if you have any questions, as always, do not hesitate to put comments at the bottom. Thanks a lot.